All right, another spark and another build. Titans, gather around. Today, we're stripping it all back to basics and then building it right back up. We're talking about the engine of the game, the 6 phases of every single turn.
And more than that, we're focusing on the tactical core of the battlefield where those turns unfold, the Frontline Forge zone. If you want to master tools and titans, you have to master this space. But first, for anyone just joining us, let's answer the biggest question of all.
So how do you play tools and titans? Easy. Draw your cards, charge your energy, build your field, act with your powers, clash with your titans, end your turn. 6 steps, 1 epic battle. All right, let's break that down. Those 6 steps are the anatomy of a turn, and each is a decision point. It all starts, as always, with the draw.
Phase 1, the draw phase. You draw 1 card from your deck. This is your lifeblood, your options, your strategy, your next big play. But it's also your first moment of luck. Drawing the perfect low-cost tool feels great. Drawing your 8-cost ultimate cast card on turn 1, not so much. That's a dead card in your hand for a long time.
And unlike some other games, hand size is strict. You can't just hoard cards forever. There's a pressure to play, to commit.
Right, and that commitment begins in Phase 2, charge. This is the soul of your turn's economy. You play a card to generate your resource, your charge, but not all charge is created equal.
Let's dig into that. What do you mean?
Most decks generate stable grid charge. It's reliable, it's predictable, 1 for 1, but some factions play with fire. An aggressive deck might use a card that generates voltaic surge. You might get more energy, but maybe it damages one of your own structures, or vanishes if you don't use it by the end of the turn. High risk, high reward.
And other factions have their own flavors, I assume. The Green 6, the Rustborn.
Exactly. A Green 6 deck might generate bioorganic fuel, which can be carried over between turns but can only be used on specific biomechanical cards. And the Rustborn, they thrive on red mesh. It's a parasitic energy they often gain when an opponent's cards are destroyed. They literally feed on their opponent's losses. So your choice of how to charge, it defines your entire strategy.
Okay, so you have cards and you have energy. Now it's Phase 3, build. You construct your battlefield. This is where you play your tools and structures.
And again, the variety here is immense. Tools aren't just generic weapons. You have your direct damage melee tools like the piston hammer. You have ranged tools like the rivet gun that can hit targets without entering a direct clash. And then you have utility tools that might not fight at all, but instead provide a crucial bonus, like the auto-calibrator, which makes your other tools more accurate.
And structures build out the zone itself.
Right? You have defensive ramparts that are just big, durable walls meant to soak up damage. You have economic forges, like the scrap smelter, that might generate extra charge for you each turn. And my favorite, combo engines. These are intricate structures with abilities that let you chain multiple actions together. They're vulnerable, but if you protect them, they can win you the game.
Which brings us to Phase 4, act. You've built your engine, now you turn the key. This is where you use the abilities on all those cards you just played.
This is the tactical heart of the turn. It's a flurry of activations, but it's not just you acting in a vacuum. Your opponent can often respond. This is where the game's initiative system comes into play and where fast cards, known as flux cards, become critical.
So if I activate a tool's ability, my opponent can jump in before it resolves?
They can try. If they have initiative and a flux card in hand, they can play it to interrupt you. Imagine you activate your plasma cutter to destroy their key structure. They could play a flux card like emergency shielding to give that structure a temporary defense boost, making your ability fizzle. The act phase is a constant back and forth, a duel of actions and reactions.
And after all that maneuvering, the violence. Phase 5, the clash. This is open combat.
This is the moment of impact. You declare your tools as attackers and your opponent declares their blockers. The math is simple, attack power versus health, but the keywords are what make it deep. A tool with Overwhelm will deal any excess damage directly to the enemy Titan. A structure with Guard must be blocked before any other card can be attacked.
And then there's Sunder, which I found particularly nasty.
It's brutal. A tool with Sunder, if it deals damage, doesn't just hurt the card, it can also destroy a tool equipped to that card. It's a way to dismantle your opponent's entire setup, piece by piece. The Clash isn't just about reducing health, it's about deconstruction.
And finally, the Aftermath. Phase 6, end, you pass the turn.
But not before resolving all at the end of turn effects. This is a crucial detail new players miss. That self-repairing barricade you damaged. It now regains 1 durability. That caustic vat structure the Rustborn player has. It now deals 1 damage to every single tool on the board. The end phase isn't just an ending, it's a setup for the next turn's pain.
So that's the turn. Draw, charge, build, act, clash, end. A 6-step process that gets incredibly deep. Now let's zoom back in on the main stage for this drama. Zone 1. The Frontline Forge Zone.
The Crucible, the place where all this theory becomes practice. We've covered who uses it and why it matters. It's the tempo driver. But its physical location on the board is what creates the tactical web.
You said it's flanked by the support zone and the midfield task zone. Let's break that down. What's the relationship between the support zone and the forge?
The support zone is your workshop. It's a safer space further back. Cards there generally can't be attacked directly, so you use it to set up your plays. A great example is the blueprint printer structure. You build it safely in the support zone. Then during your act phase, you can pay a small cost, and it creates a 1-to-1 scrap sentry token directly in your frontline forge.
So you're generating board presence on the front line, but the source is protected.
Exactly. It's the primary combo route. Support readies the play, Forge executes the play. A well-protected support zone engine can flood the Forge with threats turn after turn.
And what about the other side? The midfield task zone? How does that connect?
The midfield is where you play your big, one-shot task cards. And many of these tasks directly reference the Forge. You might play Demolition Contract, a task that says, destroy target structure with cost 3 or less in any frontline forge. If you do, gain 2 charge. It's a quest, a bounty. It pushes players to interact with the Forge, creating conflict and rewarding them for it.
And behind the Forge is the big one, the Titan display panel. The Forge is essentially the Titan's bodyguard.
It's the most important defensive line. In most cases, you cannot target an opponent's Titan in a clash until their frontline Forge is completely empty of cards. The Forge is a wall of metal and machinery you have to break through first. However, some Titans can reach over that wall.
Like who?
A brawler like Fusio, the welder, has an innate ability called Reach. It allows him, once per turn, to target a single tool in the enemy's forge directly from his panel. He can pick off a key threat before the clash phase even begins. It makes him a terrifying presence, because your forge is never truly safe.
So the Forge is this nexus of interaction. It's not just a passive space. It's a resource to be fought over.
You're fighting a resource war. It's not just about whose tools are bigger. It's about who controls the space itself. We've seen Rustborn cards that can literally lock out the zone. Imagine them playing Caustic Slag, a card that says, for the next turn your opponent cannot play any cards into their frontline forge. Your entire strategy can grind to a halt. You have the tools in hand, but no place to build them.
It sounds like a game of chess, but with giant robots and industrial sabotage.
That's not a bad way to put it. Even the number of slots in the forge matters. Most playmats have 3 implied slots. If you place your most important tool in the center slot, it might be vulnerable to abilities that target the middle of the board. If you place it on a flank, it might be safer but harder to support with adjacent cards. Every placement is a choice.
Every Titan turn, draw, charge, building, act, clash, end. 6 steps. Infinite ways to forge your victory. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Deck design. How do the different factions manipulate the Forge Zone to their advantage? Let's go deeper with the Tool Titans.
The Tool Titans are the most straightforward, but that doesn't mean simple. There are different philosophies even within the faction. Take Valara, the electrician. Her decks want to go wide. She wants to flood the forge with multiple low-cost electric-type tools to build up storm counters for a massive finishing move. Her forge looks like a swarm of angry hornets.
And the alternative?
The alternative is Masonix, the stonemason. He wants to go tall. His strategy is to play one or two enormous, incredibly durable structures in the forge, like the Citadel Wall, and just dare the opponent to break through. He's not trying to outswarm you. He's building an impenetrable fortress and winning by attrition. Two Tool Titans, two completely different approaches to the forge.
Now let's talk about the Rustborn. You said they use the forge as a trap. Let's explore that.
The Rustborn mindset is about turning pain into power. Their cards often have breakcast effects, powerful abilities that only trigger when the card is destroyed. A key Rustborn strategy is to play a cheap tool, like the Rustmite, and then voluntarily destroy it with one of your own abilities.
Why would you do that?
Because the Rustmite's breakcast might be target opponent discards a card. You're sacrificing your own cheap tool to attack their hand. It's a completely different way of thinking. You're not trying to protect your board, you're using it as ammunition. Their forge isn't a fortress, it's a demolition site.
And the Green Six, the control players, how do they handle a zone built for combat?
They win by frustration. The Green Six excel at what players call soft control. Instead of destroying your best tool, they'll hit it with a card like Tanglevine Net. The tool isn't gone, but it now has an effect on it that says, this card cannot activate or clash. It's still sitting there, taking up a valuable forge slot, but it's completely useless.
That's infuriating.
That's the point. They win by clogging your board and ruining your tempo. They turn your own forge against you, making it a prison for your best cards while they slowly build up their own unstoppable engine in the background.
This all changes again in the PvE Crucible mode, right? When you're not fighting another player, but the game itself.
It changes completely. In Crucible mode, you're also fighting a hazard deck, and many of those hazards specifically target the Frontline Forge. You might draw one that says, at the start of the turn, place a corrosion counter on every card in the forge. Get too many counters and your card is automatically destroyed. This forces you to build decks with more resilient or more disposable tools than you ever would in a standard match. You have to plan for the environment fighting back.
So no matter who you play or how you play, you have to have a plan for the Frontline Forge zone.
You have to. It is the tactical nucleus of the entire battlefield. It perfectly embodies the game's core theme of conflict through creation. The Forge rewards players who can balance raw power with inherent vulnerability and aggressive sequencing with careful, reactive planning. Mastering it is mastering the game.
It all comes back to that simple, six-part loop. The foundation upon which every strategy is built.
In every match of Tools and Titans, your tradecraft unfolds in 6 simple moves.
Draw, charge, building act, clash, end, toolin, simplicity for the novice.
Mastery for the Titan.